906.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts. And the Public Welfare Foundation, committed to advancing transformative youth and criminal justice reforms.
You're listening to WKSU Idea Stream Public Media, your source for NPR news and information. Good morning. I'm Anna Huntsman, joined in studio with Igal Kaufman. Good morning, Igal.
Good morning to you. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to be here on the sixth day, the second to last day, or the penultimate, if you will, day of our end of year fundraising campaign here at WKSU Idea Stream Public Media. This is the time to make a year-end gift. We're celebrating, we're reflecting on all the great work that Idea Stream Public Media did this year. We're also celebrating some different challenges and matches that have been completed so far during this campaign, but we have a long way to go to meet our overall goal. So 844-217-8897 is the number to call if you would like to contribute during the Sound of Ideas. I know there's a lot of Sound of Ideas fans out there that would love to get on this exciting match that we have, Igal.
Yeah, this is amazing. Thank you. You know, yesterday we had a really big one, $50,000, and we got there thanks to all of your help. It was amazing. And the beautiful thing about this is that match inspired a new match. So now Leslie and David from Avon, thank you so much.
Oh, yes, thank you.
They're giving $2,000 to match it dollar for dollar. So if you call now, your donation has double impact. So give us a call. Let's take advantage of it. 844-217-8897. Or, of course, you can visit us online at WKSU.org.
And it's only until 10 o'clock. So we have to meet that $2,000 to unlock this match. So we only have a little less than an hour now. So it's got to be during the Sound of Ideas. And we don't want to leave that match money on the table. So you want to get in on this now. Exactly. Right. So thanks again to Leslie and David from Avon. Again, we like to keep these goals every day. We have a different goal because it helps us stay on track, and we have that little funding gap that we want to meet by the end of the year. So let's do that right now. 844-217-8897 or online at WKSU.org. We're going to go into the Sound of Ideas now with Stephanie Haney.
Welcome to the Sound of Ideas from Idea Stream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for being with us. Northeast Ohio may be flirting with temperatures in the upper 40s today, but let's face it, there is a lot more cold in store for us. Along with freezing temperatures, there's the snow, the ice, the biting wind, that darkness that creeps in as early as 4:30 p.m. these days, and it can all seem very depressing and bleak, to be honest. But what if we shifted that mindset to one where we actually enjoyed winter, taking lessons from people who live in places like Norway, northern Japan, and the Arctic, for example? If you're not quite feeling ready to trade your swim trunks for a parka or skip the trip to the Bahamas and head to Alaska instead, we'll see if our guest today can change your mind, maybe shift that perspective. With me now to talk about some of her research into the best habits to practice this winter, we have Dr. Carrie Leibowitz, the author of How to Winter, Harness Your Mindset to Thrive on Cold, Dark, or Difficult Days. Carrie, welcome to the Sound of Ideas.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Now, if you are listening or watching and you'd like to join the conversation, you can do that by giving us a call. That number is 866-578-0903. You can send us an email at soi@ideastream.org, and you can also message us on Instagram at The Sound of Ideas. Now, Carrie, I'm looking at your book here, How to Winter, and this is a thick book, so lots of advice, definitely lots of experiences to share in here. When you got started looking into these winter habits, I understand this is something that took you to Tromsø, Norway, above the Arctic Circle. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. So I actually grew up at the Jersey Shore in Asbury Park, home of Bruce Springsteen, and it was a very summer-centric place to grow up. So I like to say that I'm a reformed winter hater because I grew up really not enjoying the cold, the dark, the months from, November to March. But I learned about this city in northern Norway, Tromsø. And Tromsø is so far north, it's over 200 miles north of the Arctic Circle, that each winter they experience 2 months of what's known as the polar night. So the sun sets on November 21st and doesn't rise again until January 21st. And coming from the Jersey Shore, I assumed that people there would be really depressed. And so I was interested in looking into seasonal depression as a psychologist. But what I found when I started digging into it is actually that rates in northern Norway in Tromsø of seasonal depression are relatively low. They're equivalent to like the rates in Maryland, which gets way more light in the winter, is much farther south. So I was really interested in what's going on in this Arctic city that doesn't see the sun for 2 months, yet people aren't depressed during this long, dark, cold winter.
Tell me a bit more about those 2 months where there is darkness and you're not seeing the sun. Is there something that you saw in the way that people dealt with that helped them retain that happiness?
Yeah, so this time of year is known as the polar night. And in Tromsø, you do actually get a few hours of indirect light every day. So you can think about, civil twilight or civil sunset, right? The time before the sun rises or after it sets, where you can't see the sun, but it's still light for a few hours. And that's when you get these amazing sunrise and sunset colors. And that's what the winter is like for 2 to 4 hours a day in Tromsø. And so the people that I started talking to weren't thinking about it as a time of total darkness, but instead a lot of people were talking about the beauty of that time of year and the softness of that time of year. And rather than talking about winter with dread, people that I spoke to in Tromsø tended to focus more on the opportunities of winter, the things they were looking forward to, like skiing or being cozy at home or going to the movies or knitting, whatever it was. People really saw the darkness and the winter weather as a chance to engage in cozy activities or connect with nature in a different way, and didn't seem to be as obsessed with all the things that they couldn't do in the winter because they had all these other things they were looking forward to.
Sounds like you're talking a lot about mindset, which is the subtitle of your book. Part of it, that's harness your mindset to thrive on cold, dark, or difficult days. So is that really where this stems from, our perception of winter?
I think mindset is really huge. So, I have my PhD in psychology and I studied in the Stanford Mind and Body Lab. And there, our bread and butter is really to understand how our mindsets help create our reality and influence our health, performance, and well-being. So winter, like lots of things in the world, is complex and sometimes ambiguous, right? Winter is objectively a colder, darker season, but is that cold refreshing and invigorating and an opportunity for hot baths and drinking lots of tea and eating a lot of soup and being cozy at home? Or is that cold a reason to stay inside and something that gets in the way from doing things and moving and going out and meeting up with your friends? Is that darkness romantic and cozy and the perfect backdrop for intimate candlelit dinners or creative projects, or even just, lighting some candles and being at your laptop answering emails in a sort of more romantic atmosphere? Or is the darkness something that brings us down, makes us feel depressed, is very gloomy? Those interpretations are a reflection of your mindset. So it might objectively be colder and darker, but what you notice about the cold and dark, how you interpret the meaning of the cold and dark, and then what you're motivated to do and how you behave, which of course is going to influence how you feel all winter long, those things are a result largely of our mindsets.
Okay, bear with me for a bit here, because as I'm thinking about what you're saying, I'm thinking about, I've been doing a lot of just kind of perusing on social media in different places. And I've seen a lot of conversation about your brain doesn't know whether you're telling it something that's true or you're telling it something that's a lie. So if we're talking about mindset and how we're perceiving things, how can we really know if we objectively think that winter is unpleasant, or if we're noticing the cold and we're focusing on a certain negative aspect of it, or if we're looking at the winter and we're experiencing it in a way that actually we do think it's positive, but maybe we've just been conditioned to think about it negatively? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we all fall into this trap because our mindsets are so powerful, our perceptions are so powerful, that they in many ways do create our reality, right? They shape what we notice and pay attention to in the world, and then they reinforce themselves, right? So if you walk outside all winter thinking that winter is depressing and miserable, you're going to notice all the people who look grumpy and all the times you feel sad and lonely and depressed, and that's going to strengthen that mindset. Whereas if you have the mindset that winter is a wonderful, special time of year, you'll notice all the ways that the light is soft and beautiful and all the things that feel better at this time of year. And so, it's a little bit of self-trickery, but I think a better way to think about it is this idea that, everything in the world is kind of nuanced, right? Almost nothing is really objectively good or really objectively bad. It's a lot about our interpretation of these things and how we make meaning about them. And so if you're struggling in the winter, if you're not having a good time and you want to find more comfort or joy or coziness or meaning at this time of year, looking at the way that you're interpreting the impact of this season on your health and well-being and trying to shift that and engage with the season differently is really powerful because, like you said, our brains often can't distinguish between the truth and a lie. Or another way to say it is that what our brains believe to be true is true for us, and that won't overcome objective reality, right? You can't believe that it's 70 degrees and sunny in the middle of January if it's not true, but you can take the objective facts of the world that it's 40 degrees and rainy and marry that with whatever you're telling yourself about the impact that has on you to co-create your reality with your objective circumstances.
There is actually some objectivity to objectivity. You are very right about that. It is actually in the 40s today, and it was in the teens at the beginning of the week temperature-wise. Carrie, I want to ask you about the science to back this up. Are there a lot of studies on perception and the results of perception? How can we measure this?
Yeah. So, a lot of this research comes from research on the placebo effect, right? That's sort of where a lot of this mindset stuff got started, right? So the placebo is when you have a benefit of a drug or treatment, but the drug or treatment doesn't have any active ingredients. And we often dismiss this, right? We say, oh, it's just a placebo effect, as if to say, oh, that means it doesn't work or it's not real. But the truth is that the placebo effect is really powerful, and it's a result of a lot of our beliefs, mindsets, and expectations. And now there's a growing body of research in lots of other domains. So mindsets about stress, mindsets about illness and our ability to cope with it, mindsets about healthy food, mindsets about winter, that show that when we change people's mindsets more adaptively, they have better outcomes and better performance. So for example, research on mindsets about stress finds that people who have the mindset that stress is enhancing for our performance and well-being respond better under stress, perform better in the face of stress, and actually have less of the negative results of stress. Now, like all of this stuff, right? The truth is that stress can be both, right? Stress can be harmful for our health, but it can also be good for us, right? Me being a little bit stressed to be on, the Sound of Ideas right now and talk to you is helping me focus. I'm not paying attention to the things going on in my house or thinking about what I'm going to make for dinner because I'm really locked in here. And that is that little bit of stress helping me perform better. And when I focus on that mindset, it helps me meet that stress adaptively, harness it, channel it to have a great conversation with you and enjoy myself while I'm doing it, and then have a better outcome. And so the research is showing that our mindsets really matter and that we can actually tap into them deliberately. So we can acknowledge that there are parts of winter that are unpleasant, but still deliberately choose to try to cultivate this mindset that winter is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And, to that point, there are parts of summer that are unpleasant. And along those lines, we just got an email in from Jan. Jan writes, with all due respect, I get very discouraged when you assume so many people hate winter. First point, our ecology in Northeast Ohio needs this cold stretch of weather. Take milkweed seed, for example. It needs weeks of sustained cold in order to germinate properly in the spring. Jan goes on to say, second point, a sustained cold winter helps control insect populations. Excellent point there, Jan. And third point from Jan, quit being so urban/suburban. Farmers appreciate longer periods of deep freeze because it breeds less mud and healthier animals. And Jan goes on to say, animals like people tend to get sick more when the temperatures waver so much. And that is offering another perspective. Jan also recommends a book called Wintering by Catherine May. Jan, thank you very much for that point. And Carrie, is there anything you'd like to address in anything Jan said there?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything Jan said. Wintering by Catherine May is a beautiful book. And I think we overlook how important winter is for the whole cycle of the year. So Jan's absolutely right. There's lots of plants that require vernalization to bloom in the spring. Fruit trees, peach trees, cherry trees. So a lot of the bounties of summer are only possible when we have a cold enough winter. Summer swimming in summer swimming holes is only possible if winter freezes the algae and bacteria in those ponds like Jan is talking about. And so, I think that a lot of the times we overlook the benefits of winter in the natural world, but also for ourselves, right? Winter is a time of slowing down in the natural world, and it's also a time that we feel called to slow down. And I think that we often have the perception that we can and should maintain the same productivity and energy and routine year round, and that having a sort of fallow or down season is something that we should sort of willpower our ways out of. But exactly like Jan is pointing to in nature, it's really important for all living things on Earth, including humans, to have seasons of rest and slowness to enable these other seasons of growth and productivity. And I'll just say one of the things that I have really enjoyed since writing How to Winter is, yes, I've heard from a lot of people who really struggle with the season and who are looking for ways to embrace the winter more. But I've also heard from lots of people who love the winter and who really like talking about this because they feel validated to hear all these ways that winter is so special and wonderful. And so I think that, the goal is to help anyone, whether you're someone who struggles with the season or someone who already loves winter, just to get even more joy and comfort out of the season.
Let's talk about people who maybe have an actual clinical diagnosis that makes this an issue for them. Seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, for example. What has your research shown about that, and how does that play into this?
Sure. So first, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about SAD. So I think that, a lot of people tend to think that SAD is depression light, that winter depression is sort of a milder version of depression. But clinically, psychologically speaking, seasonal affective disorder is a subtype of major depression, a subtype of clinical depression. So first, someone needs to be diagnosed with the symptoms of major depression before this sort of recurrent seasonal pattern indicating winter depression can then be diagnosed. So I think this is important for a couple of reasons. One is I think that a lot of people who struggle from the winter blues, or who just feel more tired or a little less motivated or crave different foods this time of year, I think that because the narrative about SAD is so prominent in our culture, people are really quick to assume that they have seasonal depression rather than saying, oh, this is a normal way to feel at this time of year and something that I can adapt to and sort of work with. The other thing that I think is important is that when we think that it's more mild, it actually discourages people who do have this clinical disorder from seeking the proper treatment, because since it is a kind of clinical depression, if you feel like you can't get out of bed for weeks at a time, or you're having suicidal thoughts, or you're unable to meet the demands of your job or your other caretaking responsibilities, then that really is the time to talk to a doctor, talk to a psychiatrist, and try to get clinical treatment. And what we see in the research is that the most common treatment for seasonal affective disorder are these so-called happy lamps, right? These sun lamps that you sit in front of to get this extra boost of light in the winter to make you feel good. And they do tend to work well, but they tend to be a little bit more unpleasant than people think. They're not like sitting in the sun. They're sitting in front of a rather harsh artificial white light. You're supposed to do that first thing 30 minutes every morning, which can be really hard to do with people's everyday schedules. Might require getting up even earlier in the winter at a time that it's very hard for many of us to wake up anyway. And so we find that a lot of people discontinue this treatment after a while. Now, there's a professor at the University of Vermont, Dr. Kelly Rowan, who has looked at cognitive behavioral therapy for seasonal affective disorder, where she basically treats winter depression by helping people change their mindsets about winter, helping people identify their negative scripts about the season and try to replace them with more positive, adaptive ways of looking at the winter and identify things that they can do that they enjoy during this time of year. And research shows that this kind of treatment, really addressing the mindsets or the beliefs about winter, is more effective long-term than light therapy.
I'll tell you what, Carrie, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I'm not a morning person under the brightest, warmest of circumstances, but I'll tell you what, the winter does not make it easier for me to get out of bed. But touching on something you said earlier, getting outside with a brisk, cold wind in your face while you're taking your dog out to use the restroom, that'll wake you up. It certainly will, and I've been embracing that aspect of it. And I am someone who does enjoy the aspects of the winter for sure. John Duckworth has emailed into us from Coventry. He says, my winter sport is cross-country skiing. I took it up in the year of the blizzard, 1979. There are great trails in Cuyahoga Valley National Park, but closer to John is Silver Creek Metro Park in Norton, which has a special northern section for cross-country. You don't need lift tickets to do cross-country skiing. And that brings me to another concept that I want to reference. Scandinavian people have been associated with saying there's no bad weather, just bad clothing, which I find very interesting. I'm definitely a 2 pairs of pants girl when I'm out in the morning with my dog. So how does that play into the concept of not avoiding being outside?
It's so important to get outside during the winter. And this was something I really learned how to do much better when I was living in Norway. So I grew up not a 2 pairs of pants girl, and now I have been converted. All those sort of chic Scandinavians who look like they're just wearing sweaters and jeans, secret, they're all wearing woolen leggings and woolen undershirts underneath their outfits. And there's something about making yourself comfortable for going outside in the cold that is so transformative, because when you're inside and you look outside and you see the wind blowing and the rain falling and you think like, ugh, I really don't want to take my dog out for a walk. I'm extremely guilty of this. I am also not a morning person, and I also have to go out with my dog, and it can be really intimidating. But once you start dressing for the weather and you're able to go outside in a way that you're actually comfortable and you can enjoy the fresh air, you can feel the cold on your face without feeling freezing and numb. You can see that it's brighter outside than it looked from indoors, and that can actually help wake you up on those dark winter mornings. And then you can see that there's a whole world of activities that you can enjoy, like John cross-country skiing, but going for winter walks, going winter beach combing. Even, I've had picnics outside in the Arctic in January where we gather around a fire for an hour or two, really, really bundled up. And I think this is really critical because, first of all, we know that movement, fresh air, and connection with nature are all natural antidepressants. So if you're feeling down during the winter, this is naturally going to give you a mood boost.
Okay, that's
also
good to know. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and to do anything, you have to go outside. If you want to go to the movies or a museum or meet up with friends, first you have to brave the elements in some way, shape, or form. And so the more you practice dressing up and getting out, the more you see that it's possible, and the more a whole other world of activities can open up to you in winter. Repetition
is definitely a factor in many of our activities. Let's bring up another concept here as we kind of wrap things up here. The concept of hygge, which had a real moment some years ago, Hygge. I know none of us really knew how to say it, but hygge. And that's about being cozy. And that brings us to a comment here from Denise. Denise says, genetically, I am predominantly Norwegian. I love the darkness of winter. It's cozy and peaceful, and it's a time for me to take time to regenerate. One of my goals is to spend a year in Norway to experience what my ancestors did. So when we're talking about that concept of coziness, how can people lean into that, and what are the benefits there?
So one thing I really saw throughout Scandinavia is that people use lower lighting. So they are not turning on all the lights in their house to try to banish the darkness. Instead, they're working with the darkness by having soft lights, lamps, and candles. And I really think this lighting is key to this concept of hygge, or sort of winter coziness, because it turns winter's darkness from something that so many of us struggle with or have complained about at one point or another into something that is really the thing that envelops us in this warm and cozy feeling. So I'm a total candle convert since living in Norway. And now I have a 10-month-old baby. And when I wake up at this time of year before the sun rises and come downstairs to make his bottle, before I make his bottle, I light the candles on my kitchen table because it just really changes the whole feeling of being up in the darkness, whether that's first thing in the morning or whether that's, at 5 o'clock after the sun has already set. So I think really embracing this idea that you can have this sort of quiet, contemplative, rejuvenating feeling that feels very content and slow and calm in the darkness, by really taking advantage of that and turning your big light off and doing little lights for those winter evenings. So I think that sort of coziness is really important. And then I invite really everyone to think about, what does coziness mean for you, right? For some people, that's cooking a nice meal and drinking a glass of wine. For some people, that's watching a movie with their kids. For some people, that's reading books. For some people, that's going to be knitting or other activities. But I think, when you come up with your own idea of coziness and say, okay, winter is my time to indulge in this, you can really take this sort of Scandinavian inspiration and make it work for you in a way that feels enjoyable and meaningful.
We've got a comment here from Candace that we'll end on here in Worcester. She says her son lives a majority of the time in Fairbanks, Alaska, and that winter is a time of building community, and everyone becomes more dependent on one another. You look out for each other, like stopping for a car on the side of the road in the snow, or making sure people are dressed properly with coats, as we were talking about. Candace says mushing dogs and Nordic skiing are big there, and that it's beautiful and indescribable. Candace, thank you very much for sharing that perspective with us. And we want to thank our guest today, Dr. Carrie Leibowitz, author of How to Winter. Carrie, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Stephanie. It was a blast.
It sure was. A wintry blast, if you will.
A wintry blast.
All right, we're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll wrap up the year in music with Shuffle's Best of 2025 from music right here in Northeast Ohio. This is The Sound of Ideas. I'm Stephanie Haney, and now I'll turn it over to Anna Huntsman and Yigal Kaufman down in Studio 4 so they can tell you how to support WKSU and all the programs that you love.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Stephanie. You can support us by calling 844-217-8897 or going online to WKSU.org. As Stephanie said, I'm Anna Huntsman, joined with Yigal Kaufman, and we are here on day 6 of our end-of-year fundraising campaign. Today, we're talking about resonance. So we've had these daily themes. Today is all about resonance. So the stories that we produce here at WKSU, the segments that the Sound of Ideas comes to you with and produces, they echo throughout the community. We have a 22-county region, and we might cover one topic that is also applicable to the surrounding counties. Or, of course, there are so many issues and topics that echo across the region and state, and we dive deep into those stories. We are well-sourced in our communities. We listen to what our community wants to hear. And so we know that when we are doing this reporting and this in-depth coverage, we know that these stories resonate across the community. But we would love to hear from you. If you have a story that you think about all the time, maybe something that made an impact on you, we would love for you to contribute today, because this is our last fundraising campaign of the year, Yigal. This is your last chance to kind of get that donation into WKSU. And the way to do that is, again, to give us a call, 844-217-8897, or go to WKSU.org. Yigal, we do have a match going on right now. How are we doing with that?
We're actually doing great. I don't know why I said actually, because it's not unexpected.
Right.
I knew we'd be doing great, and we are doing great. We have a match thanks to Leslie and David from Avon. We can't thank them enough for a $2,000 dollar-for-dollar match that we're trying to hit this hour. We don't want to leave any of it on the table, and we want to thank Nikki and Boonliang in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Whoa.
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
You know what it is? I think Josh Boos is big in Minnesota.
Oh, for sure.
If you're familiar with our Josh Boos, he's great. He's been all over the country, and I'm pretty sure he has a big following in Minnesota.
Yeah.
We also want to thank Mariana in Avon, Anonymous in Rocky River, Linda in Cleveland, and also Mary in Cleveland. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining in and helping us resonate across the community. We do stories, like you said, that stretch not just across our 22 counties. I was just thinking about, I was doing a story last year on barbershop quartets. Mm-hmm. And I was following barbershop quartets from here that went down to a competition in Columbus.
Fun.
So, we were all over the state.
Talk about resonance,
Exactly.
with the beautiful harmonies.
Exactly. And those men and women really, really know how to resonate and project from their diaphragms. It was amazing.
They do.
I had so much fun. I heard amazing music. And then in the aftermath, after the story aired, I got to hear from other people all over the state who were chiming in to say, oh my God, this is amazing. I used to be in a barbershop quartet.
Aww.
Those guys are awesome. And so it's my favorite thing to do at this job is to do things like that. And I can only do it with people's continued support. And the time is now. Give us a call, 844-217-8897. You can always visit us online at wksu.org and help us continue this.
And those unique, sometimes quirky or lighthearted stories, you really only can hear them here on WKSU, Idea Stream Public Media, because we have the time and the reporters for that sort of thing, and we are really responsive to what our community wants. And I'll tell you, our community loves history. And that's a topic that I've been really able to explore this year. And those stories that I've been doing, they're called Hidden History. So it's kind of exposing a more obscure or less known topic. And those stories have really been resonating with people. I love getting comments of people asking questions, wanting to learn more, or saying, hey, I never heard this before. For example, the one I just did was in Worcester, which for a long time claimed that they had the first American Christmas tree because of a German immigrant, August Imgard, who came over. He was homesick and he cut down a tree and decorated it. And he was credited for a long time with having the first one. Now it appears it was the first one in Worcester, but the trend did, seem to spread.
That's still big. Don't undersell that. First Christmas tree in Worcester is a big deal.
Exactly. Right. And it wasn't, Christmas trees at the time in the 1840s, they weren't what they were in America now, but you'll have to, I'm not going to tell the whole story. You're going to have to check out our Instagram and Facebook.
And they're so fun. I mean, watching those short reels that you're doing on, and it's spreading because the popularity now. We have Kabir Bhatia doing What It Was. Is that
yes.
That's what it's called, right?
What It Was.
Which is amazing, too. Another history segment that you can catch on Instagram or on TV. And that's one of the nice things that you can catch us everywhere, on TV, on the radio, online. And we're sharing those stories in different formats. And sometimes you see a different angle of the same story when it comes out in a different format.
Right. And so we want to continue to cover these stories and dive deeper. And we can only do that with your support. So I do want to remind you of the phone number again, 844-217-8897, or go online to WKSU.org. Check out the great thank you gifts. We were just talking about embracing winter and really, embracing the cozy side. And one of the thank you gifts this time around is perfect for that. It's the IdeaStream Fleece Bridge Blanket. So you can rep IdeaStream in those cold winter months when you're snuggling up with your blanket, watching your holiday movies,
That's
drinking
even
your hot
better.
cocoa.
I thought you were going to say the IdeaStream Happy Lamp, but we're not giving away the lamps that shoot the vitamin D at you.
No, but we do have an IdeaStream Everywhere mug, and that's another thank you gift that you can select this time around in our fundraising campaign. So yeah, you can have your hot cocoa or your beverage of choice in your mug with your IdeaStream fleece blanket. So again, that's a $25 per month sustaining contribution to get that blanket. But of course, every little bit helps. We don't want to leave that match money, that $2,000 match on the table. So get your call in right now, 844-217-8897, or go online to WKSU.org. WKSU is also supported by
the Cleveland Museum of Art, presenting its exclusive exhibition, Renaissance to Runway, the enduring Italian houses. From Versace and Valentino to Ferragamo and Gucci, modern fashion and Renaissance art are stitched together. Now open, cma.org.
Cleveland, didn't know if you would open up, but here I am, I'm feeling all your love. No matter what I've been, no matter what I've done. Cleveland, I know it's strange that
You're with the Sound of Ideas from IdeaStream Public Media. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thanks for staying with us. You were just hearing a bit of new music from two Northeast Ohio music staples, the group Apostle Jones and Hayden Grove, who is having a very big year. He was a contestant on NBC's The Voice this past spring. Hayden will be featured on an upcoming episode of Shuffle in 2026. Now, the collaboration you just heard is called My Home, and it drops on streaming services on December 30th. Looking back on 2025 for the moment, though, Northeast Ohio's music scene had a breakout year itself. On this week's Shuffle, IdeaStream Public Media's Amanda Rabinowitz and Brittany Nader shared their favorite music of 2025. Here's that.
We just finished our 8th year of doing shuffle. It just gets better every year with the music that comes out of Northeast Ohio.
I agree. I mean, we had that rough patch in 2020, of course.
Yeah.
But, people are coming out the other side, and there's been some really incredible music this year.
Let's get started. Brittany, talk about something that you enjoyed this year.
Yeah, so an album I really loved was by Cloud Nothings, a very popular Cleveland band, of course. The album is called Life is Only One Event. And this was actually an album that came out in 2020, but it was a Bandcamp exclusive. So unless you were kind of tuned into that and buying it on Bandcamp, when a lot of artists were, posting a lot more online to try to earn money since they couldn't play shows. So this album, I love it. I listened to it again this morning. It just put me in such a good mood. And it reminds me a lot of the band The Forms, who they've cited as an influence. Some of the tracks kind of reminded me of like early Smashing Pumpkins too, like very dreamy. And then there's just that indie rock sound that they're really known for. So I'm glad they decided to fully release this album. It's on all the streaming platforms and you can get it on vinyl as well. And here's a song from that album. It's called Alive in the World. What's an album that you've been loving this year?
One of my favorite bands is Spirit of the Bear. I've talked about them many times on this podcast. They are originally from Youngstown. Now they split between Cleveland and Columbus. But what I'm so excited about is that they're back. They took a very long hiatus that began in 2024 when lead singer James Harker was diagnosed with leukemia. Mm-hmm. So he spent much of the time since then in 2024 in and out of the hospital, and now nearing the end of treatment, and the band is slowly releasing new music. So Spirit of the Bear is starting fresh. They have plans for a new record and tour. This song, Terrible Truth, is one of the few singles that they're starting to release, and I'm just excited that they're back and can't wait to see where they go from here.
I keep it quiet and build a frame. I let it buzz a magnetic field and fill it in slowly. Control it down to every angle that be right. But still I say sorry. I thought I had enough to keep it alive. What a terrible truth to keep putting aside. I'm still catching the rain in times that feel right.
Brittany, let's talk about another band on your list this year.
Yes, so that would be Phantom Lease. They put out an album called Gold Line My Coffin. Phantom Lease has quickly become one of my favorite live bands to see in Akron. They have this blend of kind of humorous lyrics and like this punk rock, high energy, like Riot Girl kind of live show. But the songs are funny. They're a lot about yelling about problems you experience in your late 30s and 40s. So, the track I wanted to highlight is called Too Many Tomatoes. If you garden and you grow some tomatoes and they take over, you got too many. And that makes you mad. The band, it's kind of cool. They started as a duo. It was Jacob Trombetta and Brendan Vendel. But Jacob brought in his wife, Mary, to sing a couple songs. And she's officially joined the band as their front woman. She's incredible. She's really taking the band into this new era that I'm loving. What's a band that you've been loving?
This has probably been my favorite discovery of the year. It's a band called Elaton, and it's actually a duo. Elijah Bisbee, who, fun fact, was actually one of our very first Shuffle guests back in 2017. And now he's the force behind Cleveland's Terra songwriting workshops. So many artists that we've had on the show have gone to one of his workshops. Mm-hmm. Well, he teamed up with fellow Shuffle alum Justin Miller of the band Cultures, and they have a new project together, and it's called Elaton. And quietly, they've been collaborating for about 2 years. They wrote, recorded, and produced, mixed, and mastered their EP, Ashwire, in under 5 days, which was incredible. And Elijah shared it with me, and I gave it a listen, and I couldn't stop listening. It's been on repeat for me, especially this track. It's called Quieter Tone. And a full-length album is coming next spring, and I look forward to getting them on the podcast. So, Elaton, Ashwire.
Don't look me in the eye every time you tremble. Don't look me in the eye. Things aren't getting better. Appreciate the sound.
Brittany, what's another band on your list that you enjoyed this year?
Yeah, so People in the Daytime, they are a Cleveland four-piece. They put out their second album this year called We Can Give You Special Powers. It's their first album since their 2021 self-release. And I told someone they kind of reminded me of like Harry Styles meets the Arctic Monkeys. And someone else said they reminded them of Hall & Oates, and somebody else said of Montreal. So it's like a very eclectic mix of bands. I'm really excited to see what they do next.
How dare you, boy? Don't you ever look at me that way. I'll make you pay. Oh dear boy. Ooh, I love you. I'll make you pay. Oh dear boy. Find something else to do.
So who else do you have on your list?
This is a brand new band and a brand new artist. And in fact, we're going to hear from them on the Shuffle podcast in January. But I just had to include this on my list, even though she's going to be on the show. Frida and the Man, and it's Frida Mann. She's the front person of this group. So she has this amazing story about her path to music, and you're going to want to tune in to hear about the journey that she's been on. But she's really finding her voice, and this band is starting to really perform out. And they're releasing 6 singles. They already have a few out, but I think they're doing one every month. So there's going to be a couple more coming. But when I was preparing to talk with Frida, I listened to their song Goodbye, and I was like, wow, this is a great song. She has an incredible voice, and she is so deeply emotional when she sings, because these songs are really coming from a very deep place that led her to music. So if you get a chance, go check out Frida and the Man. Start with the song Goodbye. You can find more of our favorite local music picks and links to the music at ideastream.org/shuffle. Brittany Nader, thanks for joining me.
Of course. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
I'm Amanda Rabinowitz, IdeaStream Public Media.
Shuffle is your backstage pass to Northeast Ohio's independent music scene that heads your way Thursdays here on IdeaStream Public Media. You can check out all previous episodes of Shuffle wherever you get your podcasts. The show takes a break for the holidays, but we'll be back with a new episode on Thursday, January 15th, 2026. I can't believe we're saying 2026 already, but here we are. And this is our final live show of 2025. To get the last word on today's topics, you can send us an email to soi@ideastream.org. And of course, you can find us on Instagram. We are at The Sound of Ideas. Now, yesterday, we talked about Cleveland's new permitting process for businesses and buildings, and we got this feedback from Jamie. Jamie says, "Hi, just wanted to say that I'm a newish contractor running my own business, and the permit process is just terrible. It's really such a clique of itself. Installing a 5-day porch rebuild can turn into 3 months sometimes. It really discourages going through the proper routes." They go on to say, "I'm excited for any changes they can make to make this more smooth." Thank you for writing in, Jamie. And Jeff in Cleveland wrote in and shared, "In 2025, I had solar panels put on my home's roof. The company that did the work got the required permit from the Cleveland Building Department. So far, so good." I think there's a little bit more to this story. Jeff goes on to say, "But once the solar installation was complete, the installation company requested a zoning review from the building department. My zoning review sat on a building department employee's desk for 3 months with no action. Without the zoning approval, my solar panels were not allowed to be used. The panels waited on my roof, doing nothing. Jeff says I was losing the value of the electricity not being generated." Thank you very much for sharing your story, Jeff. We appreciate that and are glad to hear that that did eventually move through the process and you were able to get the benefit of those solar panels. Now, tomorrow on The Sound of Ideas, it's the Friday Reporters Roundtable with Mike McIntyre. This week, he's joined by reporters Abigail Botar and Matt Richmond and Karen Kassler down at the State House News Bureau in Columbus. If you missed any part of today's show, you can listen to the Sound of Ideas podcast or watch the show on the IdeaStream Public Media YouTube page. You can also hear a rebroadcast tonight at 9 on 89.7 WKSU. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for keeping the conversation going with us, which you've been so wonderful at all of 2025. We will still be with you next week, sharing some of our favorite shows from 2025 as a look back. So in that spirit, I'll talk to you again on Monday. But for now, I will send it back to Anna Huntsman and Igal Kaufman, who can tell you how to keep supporting shows like The Sound of Ideas and everything else you hear on WKSU. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Stephanie. That's right. To support WKSU IdeaStream Public Media, give us a call right now, 844-217-8897, or go online to WKSU.org. I'm Anna Huntsman here with Igal Kaufman on day 6 of our end-of-year fundraising campaign, the second to last day. So the time is running out to get your final contributions in for 2025. We are here today with an exciting match, but we're running out of time, Igal, and we need to tell us what people need to do.
Well, we've only got about 7 minutes left, really 6.5, for you to help us reach this match from Leslie and David from Avon. They put in a dollar-for-dollar match up to $2,000, but only if we get there. So we want you to help us not leave any of these dollars on the table. When you give for a match, it's like giving double. So take this opportunity, reach out, 844-217-8897 or online at WKSU.org. And there's gifts involved, right? We thank you in so many ways, not just with the product that we put out. That's our biggest way to thank you. But we also have little thank yous.
Yes, we do. We have the Fleece WKSU blanket, the Bridge blanket, so it's nice and cozy at a contribution of $25 per month at a sustaining level. We also have this exciting, it's kind of like $1 per day. So if you become a sustainer, $1 a day, that averages out to about $30.42 per month. But, you know, my math is, I think that's what it is. But anyway, the point is that this will be $1 per day here at IdeaStream Public Media, sustaining our work every single day. And the thank you gift for that level is an exciting bundle of the I Want My NPR t-shirt and the IdeaStream Everywhere mug. So that's $1 a day, $30 per month. The NPR I Want My NPR t-shirt is so fun. I have one, and you have one too, Igal. I'm sure you have the same experience where I go out in public and people are like, "What is that? That's so cool." And then I get to tell them a little bit more. And
I also had the experience, our phones, they're always listening to us and watching us. I also had the experience of seeing other people put out like knockoffs of the I Want My NPR t-shirt.
No, don't get that one.
Why would you buy one from some rando on the internet when
right.
you can give to your local public media station and, benefit the whole community, make yourself feel good, and get this shirt and the mug? It's a great combo. But
yeah. And it has all of the stations on the t-shirt, and on the back it says yours to protect. So it's kind of like you are broadcasting to everyone the importance of public media, why you support, why it is ours to protect when you have that shirt. So again, it's not all about the thank you gifts because, as you said, Igal, we provide trustworthy, reliable, in-depth news, arts and culture coverage, health coverage for across Northeast Ohio, and you rely on us for that, but we also rely on you. So again, we do not want to leave that match money on the table. This is $2,000 thanks to Leslie and David in Avon, and they came together and said, all right, we want to help each donation go even farther by, if you give $5 right now, it's $10. If you give $20, that's $40, and we don't want to leave that on the table. So now we are down to 4 minutes, so we need to hear from a few more people to meet that match. Give us a call right now, 844-217-8897, or go to WKSU.org. Igal, let's thank some people who have contributed.
I was going to say there are people out there who took that initiative to double their gift. Elliot and Jillian in Cleveland Heights, Gail in Cleveland, Lynette in Cuyahoga Falls, Joanne in Wadsworth, and Alice in Barberton. We can't thank you enough for helping us take advantage of this generous match from Leslie and David. And that's an example. That's resonance happening right there. It's resonating through the community. Everybody knows how important it is to protect public media. And now's the time of year when this is a great gift to not only give yourself and your community, but to give to somebody who maybe doesn't have, maybe somebody who loves public media, but doesn't have the spare cash this time of year, doesn't this time around. Maybe they used to give, but they can't give right now. That's a wonderful gift to give to somebody to say, I'm going to keep public media on the air for my friend who I know loves it, even if I don't listen to it. Maybe I've been spending too much time on pop radio, but I'd like to do my part to come back to public media. So now's a great time. Give us a call, 844-217-8897, and activate this match.
We've been talking about resonance. That's our theme today, and how the stories that we produce here at IdeaStream Public Media resonate across the community. They echo across the community. And what that means to me is when I'm covering a topic in Akron, I know that, of course, there's some things that maybe are just an Akronite thing, but of course, there's so many issues from housing to health, social services, homelessness, that those reverberate across Northeast Ohio. People are struggling with those things and dealing with those things. So when I'm covering a story, on my beat in Akron and Canton, I'm always trying to think of the people in Medina County that are going to be listening. How do I make this relevant for them? Cuyahoga County. How do I reach the people in Carroll County, which is another one of our counties? Yeah. Because again, so many of us are experiencing similar things. So I'm always, trying to make that extra call, trying to get that extra context that I need for my story. And it's not just me. All of us reporters take that extra step to make sure that our stories are resonating across the community. And that's what we do here at IdeaStream Public Media. And another great example of this is the Ohio Newsroom and the great work that they do across all of Ohio. And Igal, I feel like every other week you're doing a story for the Ohio Newsroom.
I love the Ohio Newsroom. The
Me
big
too.
reason is because, first of all, the crew down at the State House News Bureau are amazing. And the editor, Claire Roth, is just wonderful. She's so good at her job. It makes the stories really pop.
She's so good, yeah.
And the reporters, Aaron and Kendall, they're amazing too. But I like to contribute because it gets heard on the NPR stations all over the state. It's a wonderful opportunity to reach out to people, not just in our 22 counties, but, in Dayton, in Cincinnati.
Absolutely.
And it feels so good to see someone in Cincinnati share a story. That barbershop quartet story I talked about earlier? That was a Today from the Ohio Newsroom story. I actually have a story today about Avamancy, which is this really wonderful and unique art project that's bringing birding and